Welcome, welcome. My name is Aoife, and I am a mind-body coach, and I mostly work with highly sensitive women, teaching them ways that they can learn how to heal themselves from anxiety, depression, chronic pain, and chronic illness. And I'm super excited today. I have the amazing Callie with us today, and she is a psychotherapist, and she has loads of incredible experience and wisdom to share with you in the mind body realm. So, Callie, do you want to introduce yourself a little bit more?
Sure. First, I just want to say thank you for having me. It is so, in this process of us getting ready to speak, I've learned a little bit about you and your story. And I'm just always so inspired by individuals who go through this process and then feel so compelled and inspired to help other people. And I think it's such a magical component of this sphere, which is so many people want to take what they've learned and take their experience and really try to help other people. And so I'm really excited to be here and to talk about all things mind body. Yeah, I'm a therapist. I'm a therapist. I work in the field of mind body work and healing. I used to work for the Pain Psychology Center and was an executive director there, working along Alan Gordon and Christy Weepy. And now I'm in my own private practice, which has been lovely, where I get to help individuals find their journey to feeling safe in their body again.
Amazing. Oh my God. I'm so in awe of all of you out there that have led the way for us to find our own healing path. And so today we are so excited to be talking about this really juicy topic that I personally just love because I often share this, right? That if you met me, if I came to you back in 2017, I was in such a bad way. I had a list of incurable diagnoses, like so long. I had recently had to stop working. I was in my early 30s. I was applying for disability, and my symptoms were relentless. Like there was not a moment's peace. And my worry and my stress, it was all just really, really high level. And if you came to me and you said, like I've said this before, if you had a genie in a bottle or you could grant me a wish and you asked me what I wanted, I would have wished to take all my symptoms away. That's all I wanted. All I wanted, just when is this going to end? When is this going to end? I couldn't bear it. I couldn't stand it. When's it going to go away? This was just what was happening for me. But when I embarked upon the mind body journey, what happened was something different, and it was like it's like the side effects, when you take medication you have all those side effects. The side effects yes, that a lot of my symptoms did resolve. Some of them completely resolved forever. Others like have their own little dance going on, but I am living free from symptoms, but I'm not
Mm.
necessarily like this robot that is symptom free. And one of the mind body coaches out there, a friend, made a post one day that said the only people who don't feel things, the only person out there that doesn't feel things is a dead person or something like that. And it's like, if you really have this expectation in your mind that you're going to hit this destination after like 6 weeks, 1 year, 2 year, where you're symptom free, like that's not a human that you're talking about. And I think it's really helpful for people to start to shift when they are embarking on this process, to start to shift their expectation or the idea of a destination. And I know you have loads to share on this as well. I'm so excited to chat with you about this.
Well, I love what you just said about this difference between being symptom free and living without symptoms, because it really it's a mindset. How do we define being in remission essentially? And I think that what I notice with a lot of people is there can be this translation of perfectionism around that, how we define that. I want to feel perfect in my body. Does that mean that I don't feel anything, that I don't have vacillations of different kinds of emotions or anxiety or stress, and when does that turn into being how we feel that and the way in which we feel that? When does that mean, oh, I'm having a flare up? And then when we have defined having a flare up, that can kind of trigger this roller coaster of kind of a trauma pattern of how we have related to these symptoms for since they started, right? So we go through a period oftentimes of navigating these symptoms where it's quite traumatic. We don't know what they are. We're going to doctors. We're trying to figure it out. We're spending all of this time trying to get better. And it often brings us to this place of frustration and helplessness and deeper anxiety and fear and pressure. And the symptoms and the response to them all encompass that. And so our experience of feeling things in our body are not without that emotional response. And one of the things that I work on with people is, how do we work through the trauma of this experience to feel as though I can feel things in my body safely? I can get information from my body that says, oh, my boundaries are being crossed over. I don't want to do this, or this, I'm exhausted, and feel like, okay, these are important messages and I can take them and I can relate to them in a way where I feel like it helps me thrive and it helps direct me. And I don't need to go to a place of feeling I have to feel perfectly. I have to feel absence of anything in our bodies. I like to think of this as moving from this definition of what perfection is. So maybe we once defined it as I don't feel this sensation. It could be all of these, I have to do this, this, and that for this particular outcome. And how do we move to perfection being defined as I flow with what's happening? I flow with what's happening in my life, in my body, in my reactions, so that that exponential increase of this kind of emotional reaction that feels so overwhelming and so painful and is so connected to our suffering um, feels a little less rigid. We feel a little freer in that process.
Oh my God, I love it all. And something that I do with clients is, so something I say to people or say to clients or whoever is that when that symptom, just say it's like a neural loop, just say like a pain symptom or something, that symptom also has all these memories of all the times you were told like this is you had some kind of like diagnosis, emotional impact, you had you missed out on your best friend's wedding, you couldn't get on a flight, you lost your job. These are all things that happened to me. So for me, in each of those symptoms over time, they were like gathering like energy, they were gathering stress, memories of stress. And then they also included a huge amount of fear of the future. So every time I missed my best friend's wedding, or when I lost my ability to work, there was a more stress and worry about the future. So like my symptoms were always getting worse, no matter what I did, no matter what medication or herbs or potions or anything that I did, they were always getting worse because they were gathering energy, memories. And so the first thing I always do is start to interrupt that whole neural loop with some kind of safety signals. Like so you can be super creative with safety signals and what feels good for people. Just getting you like back into your body and starting to give your body new information, your brain, your body, new information about what's actually happening. And just like rinse and repeat, like literally just keep it really simple, but to start to just really like kill off that symptom almost. And then your response to it, that moment when it happens and there's a resistance and there's an emotional response, then that's your moment when you can interrupt, you can kind of like get in there, jump in and decide, actually we have some new information, and how do I create sensations or signals that are going to send safety messages to my brain.
What I love about what you're saying is the very real reality that we're going to get triggered. There is an emotional resonance to these symptoms. There are a lot of fears, there are a lot of logistical challenges that come with not feeling well. And when we start to feel things, I know a lot of people who will literally feel things in their body right when they wake up, because their body's kind of coming into consciousness, like they're moving things around. And that can kind of set up their day with this sense of hypervigilance. And I think that it can, we have to be careful, because you don't want to put this pressure on people to feel that they're doing something wrong, that this trauma reaction takes place. Like, it's very real. It's going to happen. And what I loved about what you said is being aware that that's going to happen. Be aware that that link may start to exist, and we may want to go down that road. And it's so enticing because it's that neural pathway that's so defined, and it's so linked to all of these really, really emotionally resonant memories. And when we can feel that and have compassion for that, we have more power in that awareness to be able to say, oh, look, that's happening again. And how can I help myself feel safe in this moment? How can I have respect and love for that? I've been through a lot, but also take this opportunity to remember what I know about what's happening in my body, how I want to live, how I can live today. What are my options? How do I make this experience of feeling things in my body corrective? How do I make it feel, how can I feel proud of myself and how I'm navigating this? How can I pull myself authentically out of shame? I think that sometimes when we feel like we should respond in a certain way and that's hard for us, we just end up feeling like we're failing all over again. And so this starts with a place of, this is where I'm at today. This is what's happening. I'm feeling X, Y, and Z about it. And where do I have options to move that goalpost?
I am obsessed. So one client once told me that she heard that TMS was described as too many shoulds. Um, and I think a huge part of the stress that I experienced was, I was so hard on myself, like in every single possible way. But I always felt like I should be doing something else. And so, like you mentioned, like correcting, you just slightly like do a little shift with your mindset on yourself. And what can I do today, right? Because I would be like straight to the like, oh, if I woke up, I haven't slept, I have this and this, oh my god, I can't work, I'm a failure, I can't show up to that appointment, I'm a failure. And that would just be my whole existence then. And so shifting, my mind has shifted so much because I'm always saying to myself what you said. It's just like, what can I do? What energy do I have today? And a major win for me is like the past few days I've been really tired, and last night I didn't fall asleep till 2 a.m. And it's so fun for me because this used to be a huge symptom and it used to be a huge problem. I won't be able to complete my day if I'm tired. I need 8 hours sleep. I need this. And it was so rigid. I was so uptight about it. And I first thing I would do when I woke up in the morning, look in the mirror. Oh my God, you look tired. You're wrecked. The day is ruined. And it was so fun because I got into bed last night and I wasn't falling asleep. And I started getting really feeling really creative and inspired. I jumped on my laptop. I started working, doing these like fun posts and writing stories. And I fell asleep at 2. And I woke up and I was my eyes were all bloodshot. I was totally wrecked. And it was so funny because I didn't care. And I honestly, like even 2 years ago, I couldn't have told you that I would be like that. But it's come from this retraining myself in, and I just knew that waking up tired didn't mean that I was going to beat myself up for everything I couldn't do when I was tired. It meant like I just It's like,
builds a different kind of trust in yourself.
I was just gonna say that. I know it's like my body and is friends with me. It's like we get each other. It's like I know she's not gonna, and like we touched on before we jumped on this call, there's a huge amount of this feeling of betrayal when you're disconnected from your mind is disconnected from your body. You're like trying to get it to behave in a certain way and it's not, and you feel betrayed and there's so much shame in that as well. So yeah.
I always try to think about, you were talking about this just now, what helps people buy in and really feel safe in taking those shoulds away? We develop these ideas of how we're supposed to live and how we're supposed to show up into the world. And there's so many different parts of our environment that lead to those belief systems, our family culture, our society, the people around us. And breaking these beliefs and being able to authentically feel safe saying, oh, I actually can show up in this way. I actually can set these boundaries. I actually, I think what that process is for people is very unique. And one of the things that I work on with individuals, especially individuals who come to me a little deeper in the journey of trying to get better, because a lot of people when they first learn about the mind body connection and the role of our nervous system, a lot of that information can really be such a resource and it can really help them get better. But there are also times where we kind of get into this work and it feels like the symptoms are kind of sticking and it's very difficult to find what is keeping them in this cycle of fear and symptom and fear and symptom. And oftentimes what I'll notice is that there's this layering of fears that are happening. So it's like, we know, okay, I want to set these boundaries. Oh, this is how I want to live. But there's all these fears and feeling safe to do that, to have that trust that we're going to be okay. And I've been thinking a lot recently about how, as kids, we have these two innate desires. We have these innate desires to be authentic, and to get our needs met. And then we have the innate need for attachment. And I think what jeopardizes our authenticity, our sense of, oh, I can show up in this world and this is who I am and this is my nervous system and this is what I need and this is the lifestyle that works for me and these are the relationships that work for me, are that we have learned that to maintain our attachment needs that we have to be a certain way. And I think that follows us oftentimes. It's not always the problem, but it can be one of the kind of invisible factors that leads us to creating a barrier and living in the way that we need to. Is, oh, am I not going to be good enough? Am I not going to feel loved? Am I not going to achieve all of the things that I need to achieve to make sure that I am safe? And we have to find these ways to authentically build corrective experiences to learn that we are going to be okay and we are enough and we're going to experience the love that we need and we are going to feel our self-esteem not only stabilize but grow the more that we are able to attend to the needs of our authentic self.
Totally. I can just relate so much. I was terrified to be myself from a really, really young age, like just really, really scared to, and it was a huge part of my journey. And yeah, it is really, really scary when you start to like just dip your toe, like you're just like little experiments. But I always think like we just have this huge kind of like case study of evidence that we shouldn't be ourselves, that it's not safe to be ourselves, that we need to act and be in certain ways to be loved, to succeed, to thrive, and we just haven't built the case yet, the other case file. I remember a client saying to me once, she was like, I can't convince myself. I'm having a debate in my mind all the time, right? Because I know all the mind body information. I know it all. I get it. I could write a book on it, right? But I just can't convince myself. I'm like, yeah, because the evidence is too strong for the other side right now. And
Mhm.
you just need to start building the evidence. Um and like having support for that is I'm sure loads of people can do it on their own, but I do feel like, yeah, having support for that is so can be really, really useful, because it can be scary and it can maybe like trigger some symptoms again, and you think you're going backwards, or you think it's not working, when really it's just a speed bump, or it's just information. But
Exposing yourself to your greatest fears. If you have all of this counter evidence, showing up authentically, setting boundaries, being yourself, is exposing yourself to, oh, I could be rejected. This could not be good enough. And it's the only way to build corrective experiences, but it's also really, it's our greatest fear. It's like, it's incredibly terrifying. And so, as a therapist in this field, it's such, you have to take a gentle approach, because walking people through that and really feeling like they can start to dip their toes into saying, wow, like I didn't even realize it, but showing up in this way, I'm really scared. And I have to go through all of these kinds of exposures to my fears to potentially get over this hill to this ultimate haven of feeling safe, and to be able to trust that, you know, I can be one way or another and it's okay. And I don't need to rely on this kind of contingent self esteem. And I can find it in myself, and I have all of this evidence. But to build that evidence is really scary. And sometimes it comes with re experiencing some of the traumas that led us to get away from our authentic self. Like there are going to be situations where there are still, for whatever reason, things in our environment that are pushing us away and sending messages that that's not okay. And how do we kind of work through that and really start to build a robust list of evidence that says this feels better for me? Maybe I have fewer important people, but the ones I have really have that energy exchange where I feel safe and loved and good. And, I have all of these different things happening in my life that are feeding me in this positive way. It's hard. It's a hard process, and it takes a lot of internal compassion to kind of work through. Like I'm really facing some of my greatest fears here that really hit me at my core sense of safety.
it's so true. And I can definitely say it's so worth it. It's so worth it, because for me, when I was living in that way with so much, it was just so much pressure, I was living in a prison of my own, these beliefs and ways I thought I should behave, and always trying to second guess what other people were doing. And it was just an impossible way to live. And I was super sick because of living in that way. So as hard as it was for me to start to step out in a new way and face these like these real primal fears, like terror, like I'm going to be excommunicated from my family, from the world, from like I'm just going to be exiled, like I'm going to die, like just these real big fears. But stepping out over and over again, like that exposure, and has it's just so worth it. And I love how you explained like how you just have this safer kind of energy exchange with the people that are in your life. The way you described that was so true for me. And it's a really beautiful experience, because talking about boundaries, I used to think, when I first was hearing the word boundaries, I used to think like, okay, I have to like go and enforce a boundary, and like, just kind of contrive and control. Like I just didn't know what it was. Obviously, I had been taught, I was trained to mistrust myself, so I didn't really know what a boundary was. And for me, I just like, the more I am in tune with my nervous system, with my body, with the information my body is giving me, boundaries just flow so naturally and so smoothly from me. And they could come out in a wrathful response, or they can come out in any way, but I really don't have to think about them. I really, really don't. Like, it's just my nervous system is always telling me, and I can if something is arising in my body, I can really sit with my nervous system and sit with myself for a while, and it will always tell me like something needs to shift, something needs to change. And it's so much like it's effortless, whereas like I don't have to like go and talk to a million people. I don't need to like figure out what I'm going to say, practice what I'm going to say to someone. It's really comes from this effortless place of, and what I always say to my clients is it comes from a place of higher love,
Mm-hmm.
because it's coming from a place of higher love for myself, a higher respect for myself, higher dignity for myself. So however that comes out of me, it's generally received quite well. I have to report, because, and I'm sure it's not the same for everyone, but because it's coming from this place of love and dignity and respect, it's kind of undeniable. Like that love and dignity and respect, like it includes everyone. It includes the person who's receiving the boundary. And
Modeling how to love you. You're modeling how to care for you. You know, it starts with you to be able to say, oh, like I I respect myself enough to want this for myself. And then people think, oh, okay, like that's how to do that for her. That's how to respect her. You know, that's how to make sure she feels cared about and safe. And we don't even realize it. But I also think the other thing that you said that was so powerful, and I think is such an important message for people in this journey, because I think that there can be this anxiety of how they're internalizing all this work, you know, and it's very intellectual. It's very like, okay, I need to do my mind body work, and I need to be journaling, and I need to make sure that this is how to be loving towards myself. And what you're really talking about is how it starts to become internalized and automatic, and that you don't have to think about it so much. And going back to what we were talking about in the beginning, there, you still feel things. You still feel, we might have called them symptoms. We feel sensations all the time. Emotions are sensations, exhaustion, hunger, all of these things that direct and tell us what our needs are. We sometimes, this work is about going underneath the yells of your symptoms and finding some of the subtlety of, what's my body telling me? Where am I feeling anxious? You know, does that anxiety need to mean something? Is it just conditioned, or is this telling me about what I need today? What do I want today? What am I in the mood for? You know, how do I, especially at the stage where your symptoms are feeling really, really high, how do I kind of go beneath them so that I don't feel driven and moved in my day just based on them, and which usually leads to a lot of avoidance? How do I go underneath and find, where am I really at? And how can I use tuning into that to build this tolerance for sensation in the body so that it actually does get lower? You know what I mean? Like we're sitting with it. We're sitting with what was probably at the source of it, which is the hums of anxiety in our nervous system that then got louder and louder and louder because we got so used to, I need to override that so that I can show up for the world around me, you know, and not for myself. And so, how do I come back to myself? Sit with some of the sensation, find ways to do that so it doesn't feel too much all the time, and have compassion for that process. But really come back to, what are these hums of anxiety in my system, and how do they kind of start to move outward into this other symptomology, and how can I use the messages of that?
I love that. And I think the main, like what you really touched on there, is we learned to not, like we learned to silence ourselves and show up in a certain way, like this inauthenticity or whatever you want to call it. We learned to behave, to silence ourselves, shut down, and behave in a certain way. And our bodies are now calling upon us to come back, to come right back. And it can, it might sound like just too simple, almost ridiculous when you have such severe conditions, but really when you can like check in with yourself, like what do you need? And because I love kids, I just really bond and get on with kids. So when I finding it hard to like have some space for myself or check in with myself, I always imagine I am myself as a 5-year-old. But if you're like super into animals or something, you can imagine like a little kitten or something that you love, and just say like and like I would say to that kid, like, what would cheer you up right now? Like, you know, and it's usually something so simple, like what would a kitten or a kid want? Like, I just want some ice cream. I just want to watch telly or something, you know? And I do that for myself. And I just do as much as is possible. You know, we all still have like duties and responsibilities and things that show up for, but I just really do that for myself. Like, what do you need? And sometimes it's like, oh, I need to go to the toilet or something, you know, and you've just been so anxious and distracted, like you're not even maybe carrying exactly in touch with like your basic needs. Like you need a drink of water or a hot drink. If you're really cold, maybe a hot drink, something that will soothe you. And I always say it's like quantity, not quality. Like just like rinse and repeat, like touching in with yourself. And these small gestures, you're giving yourself these small gestures of care and love, and you're starting to tell yourself, your body, your subconscious, your nervous system, like I'm here now. Like I haven't been here. I've been checked out. I just learned to be checked out. I'm coming back. I'm coming home. I'm here now. Sorry, I haven't been listening. What do you need right now? And I think like people maybe think like, oh, you know, I have this big trauma and it's because of this and it's because of that. But really like how you can start to regulate and come back to yourself is in these small moments of of connecting with yourself, like spending time with yourself. So yeah.
I what you were what you made me think about was the importance of, and also the power of, awareness. And I think sometimes, you know, when we're in this preoccupied or anxious state, we kind of go rogue. You know, we're operating based on this feeling in our body and we don't even realize it. But when we practice always being connected, like right now, I'm here, I'm talking to you, I'm thinking about where you're at, I'm thinking about what I want to say. And I also have an eye into what I'm feeling inside my body. You know, I notice that, you know, I have a little bit of a, you know, my heartbeat's a little bit going. I'm like a little bit thinking, I'm a little revved up, and I'm responding to that with safety. Like that's safe. Like you're being recorded. You're thinking about what you want to say. You want to be helpful to people. Like this is natural. This is human, but I'm aware of it and I'm connected to myself. And when I have a moment in my breath, I can take a deep breath and I can feel my system relax a little bit. It's not, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, and I need to da 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 da, da and now it's taking over, right? I'm aware of this kind of subtle signal that says, hey, like, you know, maybe you feel a little bit fearful for whatever reason. You know, you're in a position where you're putting yourself out there, you're being vulnerable. This is something very, very simple, but I am in touch with it. I'm sending myself these messages. I'm also connected to my experience. And I try to practice this in a kind of small way all the time, you know. And I think that as a therapist, it's like not only does it help keep me regulated, but I also feel like it's kind of a superpower. Is like, what am I feeling in this moment? What is it telling me about the experience of my client? Was it telling me about the experience in this room right now and the energy here? And how can I use that awareness to support myself and this person? Right. And so I think that when we practice that and we kind of get in touch with how we can harness, not control, but harness touching in a non-preoccupied way, in a way that's super loving and just aware, how does that change our choices that we make about how we exist in the world, right? How we exist with somebody else. I feel for myself, and I can only speak personally, and I can speak to what I've seen with some of my clients, is I think it gives us, we have the sense of being out of control. And it actually is one of the very few ways that we can feel in control of, oh, I'm feeling this way. What do I do about it? How do I respond? Do I go with it and operate from that place of fear? Or do I see that that's happening? And do I relate to it in a slightly different way that makes me feel safer.
Totally. And it brings us back to like you're living from a different vantage. So I used to get like such severe like public speaking, like talking anxiety, social anxiety, like just being around anybody really. And but everything back then, I just feel like it's before and after for me. It's like before, when I was living, I was seeing everything as a symptom, something to be feared, something to be controlled, something to try and medic like medicate or remedy away or potion it away or zap it away or whatever. It was just like, oh, just being dragged all around the place by my experience.
Mm-hmm.
Then flip over, living from a different vantage, it's all information.
Mm-hmm.
It's all
Mm-hmm.
information, and a lot of it is giving me really useful information about boundaries or relationships or needs, my own needs, just bringing me always more information about meeting my own needs and how I can be more loved, and then I can operate more at my fullest potential, that I can love others and be more generous with others. But it's really, yeah, so it's not reaching a destination of becoming symptom free. It's retraining yourself in whatever tools you find that suit you and suit your kind of like, personal preferences, personality types or whatever, so that you can live from a place like, it's like more expansive place where you can have your full experience, and it can be information rather than something to try and control and fear and all, and essentially, so it keeps generating into illness when your body is just like, I can't cope, I'm malfunctioning, I can't carry all of this tension literally
Mm-hmm.
for you. Like, it's an impossible way to live, please change. That's what your body is saying, please.
Mm-hmm. I absolutely love that. And, what I think is really interesting is that we go through this process of initially taking the information of our symptoms to mean something fearful and traumatic, to moving into taking information from our symptoms to say, what do I want? What am I in the mood for? What do I need in this moment? Um, how can I kind of better serve myself? And that process of moving over from those messages that are really scary to these messages of like, oh, this is kind of wonderful. I have this opportunity to check in and give myself what I need and treat myself with this love and compassion. You know, we're still learning from our symptoms. We're trying to build a new neural pathway that is not connected to all of that fear and trauma and suffering, but more into, oh, I now have this opportunity to give myself all these really loving things and to, attend to myself in a different way. And through that process, I know initially some people might hear this and be like, well, the symptoms are really intense. It's really hard to do that. And I think, as you said, rinse and repeat, as you continue to do that, you're actually expanding your window of tolerance of these sensations because you're relating to them differently. They're paired with this sense of peacefulness and this sense of love and this opportunity to give yourself something versus this feeling of things being stripped from you.
Totally. Oh my God. And the way you even said that they're two different worlds. Like, one is my life is being stripped from me, my like opportunity is being stripped from me. It's desolate, it's isolating, it's lonely too. What do I need? How can I love on myself today? Is there someone I can connect to? Whatever. I love finding out with my clients. I get them to create a love list. Like, what is your list of like top 5 things that really soothe you, that really support you, and and go to that. So it's just totally different place to live from.
I totally agree. I totally agree. And moving to the place where people really feel deserving of giving themselves that, you know, speaking to what we were saying before, which is that sometimes there can be fears even in feeling like you can give yourself that, and there, I think that wherever you are at in this process, there is healing that can be done. And there are ways to kind of start to harness this sense of really truly and authentically feeling like, oh, like I not only want that, but like I deserve to feel that in my day. Like I deserve some peace and I deserve safety and I deserve to have a life that I enjoy.
I love that. Love it so much. And I know what comes up for a lot of my clients is guilt. Like it's terrifying. Like it's terrifying to treat yourself well, to take a break, to ask for help. Like that terror of authenticity, like that's there, that's real.
Mm-hmm.
So it really is just a training and building that evidence. Like, oh, I took a break, or I laughed and I had some fun, and the world didn't fall down. No one whipped me or whatever I thought was going to happen. And yeah, just building that evidence over time that you can do that, and just to treat yourself really well. It's so unfortunately not how we learned to be in the world. But another thing that came to me was so many people that I speak to, they have all the information, they know all the information, and they are not getting anywhere, not getting any results. And yeah, I suppose I think that for those people, and I'd love to know what you think, but a lot of the time there's like a block, it's like, okay, I can understand it so far, but I don't know how to implement things for myself. I don't know how to take that step out into self-love or self-care. So yeah, I think that's a big question that comes up for people. Um,
Huge question. And I actually think that there's not necessarily, maybe somebody else might say differently, a general answer to that. Because I think that the intellectual understanding around mind body symptoms is something that we can get from a lot of places. And it can be such a it's one of the most important useful tools to get started on this journey. But understanding your own barriers to moving past the intellectual into a felt experience of safety, you know, generally speaking, it's through, as we talked about, exposing yourself to the things that you might be barriers for you, that create fear, that make the things that you don't feel that you truly believe or feel deserving of, and working towards finding the places where that originated and how that shows up for you now, and kind of starting to live that way and starting to see how that feels and whether there's dissonance that happens. But it actually isn't a one size fits all approach. There are general themes here that exist for a lot of these clients. That's why we can connect so much on these topics, is it's like, oh, I see that, I felt that, I saw that in that person. But they're the particular ways that people learn these fears and the barriers that are keeping them in this place of fear, in terms of feeling like they can really dive into their authenticity. That's unique to their story, and it needs to be kind of honored and heard and witnessed, so that they really feel like they can kind of move through these sticking points for themselves and feel like somebody knows me well enough to actually know that I am safe, if I live in this way. Because I think that's also a part of it, is it's like sometimes when we overgeneralize things, it feels like, well, I'm the exception because I grew up in this environment and I didn't feel all this love and I didn't feel this sense of safety, or I had these messages. And we kind of live with those belief systems that feel really unique to us, and that's part of the shame, is I'm different than other people. I'm not good enough to get better. And so we really want to honor people's stories and why they feel unsafe and how they feel like they could get to a place of feeling a little freer in their body and in their soul. And so I think that that's a process where I feel like I'm constantly learning from each individual how they need to get better. I have an expertise, but I need them to show me the way so I understand, you know, what's been hard for them, what's made this difficult, what are the beliefs that you're feeling you can't get past. And then we go from there.
I love that. And it really just sums up the mind body approach, which is so deeply compassionate. Um, and yeah, in my experience, it's just a continuous deepening in compassion, and the compassion you can have for yourself, certainly for other people. But I did hear like a theme of like your belief systems, what your unique belief systems and setup is personally, because personally I am so sensitive. I am highly, highly, highly sensitive. So I know I've learned, that things are different for me, types of healing, types of learning, types of everything. I literally experience differently, like throughout my life, things that would just be water off a duck's back for someone else would be such a big deal for me. And
Mm.
so I can, from what you're saying, we all probably have these different kinds of sensitivities, and different. We're such a we are all such unique expressions. So our belief systems that we picked up from the world around us, and are therefore our deep core fears and understandings of what is safe for us and how we could and should be in the world, yeah, is so unique and so different. So I love what you said. So I guess for that person, then it's finding someone who can like essentially like facilitate or hold space for them while they have the opportunity to discover that for themselves, because that's the point of us anyway, isn't it? It's not to like tell someone how they are, what their beliefs are, whatever. It's for them, like it's just to like hold a space or a container so that you can find that out, discover that, be curious and discover that for yourself. Like what is this belief or understanding about yourself that is so scary to really move beyond, like you said, the intellectual understanding. Like for me, that was when I first heard this information, things started to change. Like the intellectual understanding was for sure like the first port, like for me. Then it was getting all that information into the body, into my practice, into living day-to-day life. So if there's a big terror and a big fear in the process of doing that, then I can see how it could stall things, so to speak.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think it's an important process I think that when it's our normal, right? So we don't know when we feel something is our normal, and this is just kind of the way that we exist in our life. What can be helpful is being in a place that does feel safe, where you're speaking to that. And, I might be able to facilitate the process by saying, oh, wait, that thing that you said, I'm seeing that this might connect to a barrier that you're feeling, a place where you have resistance or avoidance. Tell me about that. Why does that feel hard? What are you afraid is going to happen? We need to look at kind of the way that the brain is catastrophizing certain things in their life and what might feel sensitive and how they're comparing themselves to other people. And I might be there to be a mirror back and say, okay, wait, this might have to do with what you're feeling. This might be something that we can work on, that we can start to kind of flesh out and help you see if there's room to feel differently about this, to see how we can explore here, build safety, find an approach that helps you gently expose yourself to this. And that's kind of my job, is I can kind of start to pick those things out and kind of make sense of that maybe chaos that you feel like, I don't really know why this isn't working. This is just kind of the way that I live. This is what I do. Okay, I'm kind of seeing that I have these areas where I don't feel safe. But I don't really know what is safe and how to feel about these things or think about these things, right? And I'm not here to create any other shoulds for people on how they should feel or behave, but to help expand what is okay and what's possible, and what they deserve in themselves in terms of care and love, and what they feel is possible physically in their body. So how do we combine this intellectual understanding of all these things and make it something that feels visceral to them and to their experience?
I love it. And as you were talking, I was just imagining like connect the dots. It's like, oh, well, these
Mm-hmm.
dots are just everywhere, and they're great dots, and there's all this information, but just like connecting those dots. And those aha moments are the medicine. Like Dr. Sarno used to send his patients to lectures, much to their disappointment at first, I'm sure. And it's all these aha moments. They're like fusing new understandings, new neural networks. So it's all the medicine. I love it.
Yeah.
Thank
Yeah.
you so much for being here and hanging out on a Friday morning. I think it probably is for you. And yeah, if there's anything else that you want to share before we wrap
This
it up.
was so fun. It just was really, really fun to talk to you and to get your perspective and to have an opportunity to kind of go back and forth on some of these topics. And I hope we can do it again